Well, welcome to the Crexi Podcast, your go-to source for insights from the top minds in commercial real estate. I'm your host today, Mike DiGiorgio, founder and CEO of Crexi, and I am very excited to host this special guest, one of the most special people in my life, who I've been looking up to for years, and who's one of the inspirations behind how Crexi started in the first place. Fernando de Leon, Leon Capital. Fernando, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
So this is the first time I've gotten you out to California and to see our office. We've had plenty of offices. We've gotten you through a few of them, but this is your
Yeah.
first time in the new office. What's your quick take on the new office?
It's incredible. The amount of energy in this place is extraordinary. I mean, there are people everywhere doing business. You can tell people are motivated. A lot of young people, men and women, that are doing good work, and you can tell it's competitive. It's a hard charging environment that has been built around Crexi. I imagine it has a little bit to do with some of your mojo.
Some of the early DNA exists throughout this place, I think. So we've come a long way the last 10.5 years since the conversation we had over a scotch in Newport Beach that led to the crazy conversation that then led to starting Crexi and where we got to today. Do you remember that night when we had the first conversation around what Crexi could be, how we'd go about it? And if you do, what was it about that night, about me, about the idea that you thought, maybe this is worth taking some swings at?
Well, I mean, first of all, it was a good idea. It was a good idea that data and that technology should overlay real estate on a much more assertive basis, and so that made sense to me. So I remember that. I remember that was sort of a pivotal part of the business construction early days. But I think importantly, I'd built several businesses by then. I'd built, six businesses by then, and so I had some knowledge of kind of how people are able to impose their will and build something out of nothing, and from my standpoint, and I guess now I've been proven right, but from my standpoint, you had the ability to do that, you as an individual, because there was not much more besides a good idea, and betting on the idea, and then your ability to execute it. So I think it was it was those two things that lined up for me: the technology, the moment in time, the timing, and certainly the people at the table that were pushing this forward.
What about how'd you assess the landscape? Like, was it more from assessing the competition? Is that something you usually look into? Obviously, the person matters a lot, and the people you're backing matter a ton. But was it the competition? Was it where tech had evolved in the industry, and just your idea of like where tech should go? What was it about the landscape that was the most interesting to you?
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, I remember this is kind of a funny moment, but I remember that at around that time, somebody asked me to invest in an office building, and it was an office building conversion deal, office to resi or something, and we looked at the economics of office. I think it was in Chicago, and I said, I'm not going to do this office deal, but I wonder what the opposite of investing in office is. And no ill feelings towards the office investing community or anything, but I just thought, like, the opposite to me at that time felt like something that was asset light. It felt like data was the right play, and so I remember distinctly passing on that other investment, which was about a pretty substantial dollar investment, and saying, no, this is a better play. It's riskier to put capital behind building Crexi, but it's a better play long term because this is where things are going. So I think that was kind of an interesting moment, was contrasting it to an office building investment. And then on the competition side, look, I mean, I think in all industries that by then that I had invested in, and then subsequently in every industry, there's always competitors, and there's always people and companies. Some of them are very established. Some of them have monopoly. Some of them are aggressive. Some of them have patents. Some of them have things that are very, very difficult to compete with. Right? In and this the landscape for real estate, for commercial real estate, as a data and technology play, was difficult because there were well capitalized groups already in the industry, and there were a lot of sort of anachronistic old ideas. And so the business had to come in and say, okay, not only are we going to compete, but we're going to have the stomach to deal with all of the adversity as we build this thing and make it a business that every commercial real estate professional today recognizes as Crexi. But you had to have the stomach for it, and you had to deal with the competition. And I think that's what's been done here is build something that is enduring, but you have to have the stomach and the stamina for it. So I think most of the time is the leaders of a business have that stamina, and they either can will it into existence and win, or they can't. And in this case, I knew, with this team, with capital, that it was a good idea and that the people could withstand the competitive landscape and then win.
So you've mentioned that phrase to me before, will something into existence, and it's something that I see in you obviously and look up to in you and admire about you. How do you see that in others? What do you think? Is that something you're born with? Is that something that life teaches you? And what is it that you see in people that makes you feel this person has that it, and if they have that it, if that it is a thing?
Yeah, willing something into existence. I mean, think about it. Something doesn't exist in one moment, and then the next moment it does by sheer force. How does that happen? Well, in entrepreneurship and in business, it happens all the time. And then subsequently, some other, all of the adversity that happens between those two things, between not existing and existing, you just have to have this strength, this ability to invoke a power, a strength to go do that on the environment. Some of that is leadership. Some of that is the good idea. The good idea has to be core, right? But I've described building a business as chewing glass and staring into the abyss, because it's a very lonely process. Like, when you're trying to do something, you're just kind of staring at it and trying to will it, and it hurts. I mean, it hurts. The way you chew glass is the metaphor, because I think it's this place where nobody seems to understand. Some people want to follow, some people don't, but there's a lot of chatter, and you kind of have to drown out all that noise and all the people coming at you and all the people chattering about whether or not you're right or wrong, and just go forward and will it. And that, it's hard to do, because there's something in the pit of your stomach that says, this is new, this is different, I should be afraid, and you have to go past all that. And human beings are very, we're trained from a young age to follow others and to learn, right? When we're babies, we learn from our parents how to eat, right? We learn from our mother how to eat, how to speak. So we're trained instinctively as human beings to learn how to act from others, and so we follow that pattern of basically mimicking behavior, right? We follow that pattern of mimicking and mimicking, and entrepreneurship is the opposite of mimicking. It's completely new, completely creative, imposing something that didn't exist before, and so you have to shred all these instincts that we have to go do the same thing that others are doing. We have to do it differently, and so entrepreneurship is really, really hard, like counter biological, counter evolutionary thing to do. That's why it doesn't happen that often, and when it happens well, it's a beautiful thing to watch flourish.
So when you say that, well, I still think we're early in our journey of where we're headed. But at what point over the last 10 years, having, you watched and be so close to this journey that we've been on, were you like, you know what, this is working. This might have some staying power. We might do something special.
Well, look, I think the first time that I knew it was going to work was the first time you got punched in the stomach and you got right back up. And the ability to do that, it doesn't matter, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you have 100 salespeople or 1,000 salespeople. It doesn't matter if you have, $300 million of revenue or $300 billion of revenue. Like, the ability to continue to fight, to build your business, that's an instinct, right? I mean, look at some technology companies that were late on AI, and they didn't adapt fast enough. And so even though they had semi-monopolistic business plans, they are still not adapting fast enough, and they may, not flourish in the future. And so the ability to adapt fast and pivot and learn and then make your business plan better all the time, that is just an adaptation, right? And this business had it from an early age. Like from inception, this business always had the ability to adapt to adversity, to getting punched in the stomach, metaphorically, and just to keep going. And so when that happened the first or second time, I was like, we're going to win because we'll never give up. We'll make this thing work.
I like that. So you said AI. We'll touch on that now. We've been aggressively taking bets in AI for years now. I think we were ahead of the game there, and I think the industry will see that more and more over the coming years. How do you think AI shapes the world, maybe first, and then secondly, real estate?
I mean, the world, the single most impactful and substantive change in humanity will come from AI. I mean I studied evolutionary biology in college. That was what my concentration was, and so I tend to think about movements in humanity along the lines of 1 to 10 million year periods. And so I've been studying the evolution of Homo sapien for about 4.5 million years. I've studied the evolution of social groupings over the last 200,000 years, post agrarian societies, and I think about that, the build of every one of those technological innovations, and it is undoubtedly it all pales in comparison to the impact of taking the neural anatomy of a human and then transposing it through technology to learn conclusively and often is going to be impactful in every single thing that we do, every part of the supply chain of every product or service that we consume, every lifestyle question is going to be impacted by AI. So the question is really, you know, um, what does it mean for this business, right? For Crexi, what will it do for Crexi? I think some of that is harnessing all the data that you have and that the company receives routinely, and then synthesizing it and using it for the benefit of your customers so that they can make the best decisions, most informed decisions possible as landlords, as brokers, as owners of property, as sellers, and anybody that's transacting in the commercial real estate space. If you can synthesize that information, give it to your customers, and allow them to be better practitioners, better professionals, I think your company gets rewarded for that.
I think that's well said. So you've been, when I first met you, you were primarily in commercial real estate. You've now started dozens of businesses. What do you think the learning lessons are from Crexi platform and how you've seen this build that attribute well to other businesses you've started?
Well, I think, yeah, we've built businesses in 12 different industries, and in those industries, I mean, they vary from insurance, insurance brokerage, premium finance, equipment leasing, dental, the mental health business, multifamily, industrial. Every one of those industries has incumbents that have a way to do it. And then in every business that we go to, can we do something to provide value to others, right? Whoever it is. And I see the formula kind of simply in my mind. I say, what is the addressable market of something, and what exists today, right? So if the technology that exists today is X, and Crexi provides 3X, right? Then the difference between 3X and X, that's the value created. And then that multiplied by the number of people that consume your product or service equals the total value you created for humanity. And then your reward is based on that. And so to me, it's sort of a mathematical formula. How many people can you improve their decision-making process, or how many people can you improve their ability to transact in the commercial real estate industry? So in every industry we've gone to, I always look at that formula for value creation and value extraction. And then again, I go back to this question of stamina. Like, do you have the wherewithal to go into an industry and fight for your place in it? And some people give up, and the businesses that we build have people that are in that field, that are just consummate athletes and have stamina and have the stomach to deal with adversity. And when we put capital behind people like that, they're able to build extraordinary things. So I think, every industry we've ever been in always has that same pattern. A good idea the ability to provide value to its customers, and then the leaders in that business that have the stamina to deal with adversity. If we see those three things, we're going to do well.
You're a good judge at those three things. So I've known you 14 years now. I remember when I first met you, having a conversation with my brother, being like, "I'm gonna do something with that guy. Like, I'm gonna follow that guy. That guy's gonna rule the world one day." So you've changed a lot over the 14 years, but you're still pretty much the same person I met 14 years ago. How have your goals, Fernando De Leon 14 years ago, what were your goals? What was your purpose? And how has that changed over the last 14 years?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing that changes is family, right? I mean, in those 14 years, I built a family with, four children and kids that are, that changed everything and changed the formula about what's important. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that happened. But I think there's a lot of things that are constant, right? In those 14 years, I mean, I was 16 years old when I made a vow to myself that I would compound capital, right? And I'm 46. So for 30 years, I've had that one conviction. And I've been agnostic as to how to compound capital, but I've understood the power of it, right? So now as I scale and as things grow around me, I can only compound capital if I have great partners, if I have great people around me that have good ideas. And so part of the reason, we have become slightly more visible to third parties is because we said, hey, we need people. We have excess capital. We have a deficiency of good ideas and excess capital. We need more people to come to us to build businesses with us. And so I think the constant has always been my obsession or zealotry around compound interest and our ability to do that across many different industries. So that's been consistent. What's changed is as things got larger, more people with more ideas that come around us and build great things, right? Whether it's for instance, right now, one of my biggest focus is building our insurance businesses, and the people that we bring constantly into that business is no different than when you're doing a Crexi every day, which is bringing great salespeople and great technologists and product developers and people that can see the future and see the future of your customers, what they need. Right? You've built this place as I walk around it with a bunch of extraordinary human beings that are developing products all day, and then you've got people that are selling them and exposing those great products to other customers. And so it's no different, right? That's the formula in that regard has not changed in any one of the businesses that we've invested
So that's I thank you for noticing that. I think we have good
in.
people around here, a lot of good people around here,
How
which
many
which
people
helps.
are you at now?
A little over 500 total.
Wow,
We're
500.
I know.
Wow, I remember it was like a little house somewhere in like I think it's Marina Del Rey or Venice, but it was a little house where everybody was at the beginning. It
The
was
house in the Venice canals. It was the three of us building office furniture in the living room,
that's
and it's
uh,
come a little bit of a way since then.
wow, that's incredible. 500.
Five,
I'm blown
I
away.
think around 550. Oh yeah, all in.
Wow.
We both come from operator first backgrounds, and you're now in 12 industries, multiple businesses. How do you stay so connected to each? I mean, and how do you know when to dive in deep versus be hands off? Like, how do
Yeah.
you think about that?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about it. But I think, well, first of all, I think being an operator means a lot of things. It means that you were at some point an analyst, you were an HR leader, you were a CFO, you were the bookkeeper. And when you started from nothing, the way I did and you did, you know all those things instinctively. And so it's harder for people to tell you something that's not true about all of those building blocks of a company. So when you did it yourself, it's hard for you to miss the right details because you've been there. And so that's one. But secondly, I think the level of integrity of people that you surround yourself with matters a lot because those people are helping you discern challenges and risks and what details are worth focusing on. But I mean, the bottom line is you just got to work. Like you got to like I spent this weekend reading reports on performance in every one of our companies. And I look at it, and the people that work with me will tell you, like, why is he asking me about these things, and why is he freaking out about some little detail in the recruiting report for the dental company, and I'm all over it. So I think some of it is, again, going back to this question of stamina. Do you have the ability to dive into all the details, and then also go right up to 30,000 feet and look at the broader vision and strategy of the business? And you've got to be able to do that on offense and on defense all the time consistently, right? So I don't think um, there's any shortcuts around that, but you do. But having started from nothing gives you this great muscle memory and ability to know what's important.
As you think about these other industries, does a real estate footprint matter to you? Is it that's kind of your core in some ways, or at least where you started in some ways?
Yeah, look, I think the real estate business was very foundational for us because when we started, for instance, doing investing in healthcare, we knew real estate, and we would build a veterinary clinic, and we'd build a real estate so that our operating business could operate out of that location. But we chose the location based on demographics. So we knew exactly where homeowners that had pets lived. And so our ability on the real estate side to discern the demographics was huge. And then the second thing, as real estate owners, we were always underwriting credit, right? So we always could underwrite the P&L and look at all the numbers and all the operating expenses of all our tenants. So we knew exactly which ones were doing well and which ones were. So underwriting demographics and underwriting P&Ls and credit through the real estate lens was why we became so good at risk in insurance or risk in the healthcare businesses that we operate today. So all of these businesses are pretty well connected. They all have consumers, they all have operating expenses, they all have risks, and you start to see a lot of things that kind of shine through all of them consistently.
How do you think about scaling companies that have real estate footprints versus a tech company like a Crexi or others you're involved in?
Yeah, I mean that's real estate is it's got great extraordinary benefits, but one of the limitations of real estate is that you can only derive a certain amount of net operating income out of four walls. You can't make those walls bigger. And occasionally you can, but but typically you can't. And so the four walls dictate operating income, and so that's a limitation. And whereas technology can be layered into very very large markets, and you can scale on scale, and there's less limitation from a physical footprint. So I think when we look at enterprise software businesses, we just invested, for instance, in a business in Germany that does the back end infrastructure for bus and rail ticketing systems in Europe and Asia, Africa, Latin America, and it's an extraordinary business called Distribution. And it's a German company, and the ability to scale has been extraordinary because they can go to every market, Latin America, Africa, and consolidate the back end infrastructure for bus and rail. But the market is very very big. If I was trying to do something in real estate, I'd be sort of constrained by how many apartments I can build on it, or how big the warehouse has to be on that particular site. And so technology, fortunately for you, has no bounds, and you're going to continue to grow this business from 550 employees to 5,000 employees, I'm sure someday. And so I have no doubt that that's where Crexi goes.
We're on our way. And so to maybe bring it back to commercial real estate a little bit more, obviously a lot of people listening to this are commercial real estate professionals, commercial real estate entrepreneurs. If a commercial real estate entrepreneur said, "I want to partner with you today, Fernando," and came to you and pitched you an idea, like what kind of commercial real estate entrepreneur are you willing to take a bet on? That could be industry, property type, markets, person.
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
Well, you know what kind of person I'm looking for. So that I've answered that question. The question of what idea? I mean, I've been telling you we should build a digital mortgage business around Crexi. So I love that idea. I think commercial real estate professionals, if you're listening out there and you want to build a business, I think when we're looking when a property buyer or a seller are looking for maximizing the value of that property, or an acquisition, you need financing. And if you can make a market between borrowers and lenders, and you can make that market more efficient, I think there's a serious business plan around that. I think there's people that have tried and it's hard to scale it. Like everything that is worth doing, it's hard. But I do think that that business, if it's out there, could be a big compliment to Crexi. But I also think it's just a great idea for real estate professionals in general.
I love that. So this is a good question that
So
was
build it, and sell it to Crexi guys.
deal. I might know some people working on that. When you think about leverage, either financial or operational leverage, give me an example of some time in your life where you've learned a lesson about leverage and how to use leverage.
So operational, I'll talk to you about people leverage. It's interesting. When I was building a business, I would find people that were very good athletes. Like they were very good at sales or real estate development or finding deals, but sometimes they were difficult to work with. And so we called it the TO effect, right? And I always, instead of hiring that person, I would hire the people that were good team members, were solid athletes, were easy to lead or wanted to learn and were hardworking, right? And so I always went for people that were stable, reliable, but were good athletes. And so there's a balance there of people that you can build teams around. I've always thought that there's sort of a social systems engineering part of not just computer systems and computer engineering, but a social engineering part of every business you build. And so I always went for those people that were good teammates. And that gave me a lot of leverage because if I built around them, I had less disruptions on the team. The teams were more scalable. They were more consistent. They were more reliable. You didn't have a lot of drama. And that always gave me operating leverage. I made plenty of mistakes, so don't get me wrong. I mean, I've built we've made plenty of mistakes on that front, but I think we always gravitated towards certain people that were good human beings, and that you could build around and with for the long haul. And so if you look at people that started working with me 15, 20 years ago, and you talk to them, and many of them,
Yeah.
these people are salt of the earth, and they're great teammates and great partners to build businesses around. So that's how I got operating leverage. On financial leverage, I mean, look, I think, you know, real estate is a cyclical business. That's no surprise, and so you always had to be expecting cycle shifts every 6, 7, 10 years. You knew that they were coming, and so we were always ahead of those. The cyclicality of real estate, and so we were always under levered. Always knew that there was a need to sell property into a cycle and things like that, and so we were always well prepared to deal with financial leverage in that regard.
So we had a funny story. We an early employee of the Crexi team, very senior, who you know well. Speaking of the people that you bring on, I always used to call him Dennis Rodman. Well, you can only have one Dennis Rodman. Phil Jackson and Michael
Yeah,
Jordan
that's
always
right.
said, you can have one Dennis Rodman. And I bought him a Dennis Rodman shirt jersey. And last time we had dinner, he shows up at this really nice 5-star restaurant
With a Dennis Rodman.
with the Dennis Rodman jersey on. And it was really we got to get a kick out of that.
Rodman was a good rebounder. You do need a good rebounder on the
Yeah.
team, but you gotta know who the other four are before
That's
you
right.
put them on the.
And then we like to
court.
say, we like maybe a bad analogy, but the Patriots were always very good at finding people who were good teammates, were maybe out of place in their last team, but they
Yeah.
knew what they were really good at, and they put
Yeah.
them in the seat where they were
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
And I think if you can figure out how to make the most out of the people,
Yeah.
and really bring their strengths out, you can do some special things.
Yeah, so I think that is operating leverage, and that's the only way to do it is with human beings that are good partners.
All right, so you've been insanely successful, incredibly successful.
We're just getting started,
Just
Mike.
getting started. I know. And I have a feeling where your story, 50, 60 years from now will end. But if you had to start over, 25-year-old Fernando De Leon,
Mhm.
back in the beginning, starting over, what would you do differently?
Ooh, 25. Well, if I were 25, I would invest in AI when I was 25. So 21 years ago, whatever it was. No, I think, look, I love the way things have transpired. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And I've had a great ride, and I've been around people that have moxie, that have audacity, that have built things. That's the American dream, man. I can't change it for anything. What there's little things that I could have, sold earlier, or in a business I should have, pressed the gas harder. I think I don't complain about those things because I feel like the one thing that we've consistently been good at is sort of pivoting and constantly saying, okay, you know what? Something went wrong. We don't whine about it. We just get back up and we see what's around the corner to see if there's something better, right? And we go for it, and we have a certain sense of optimism. So when you get punched in the stomach, you get back up, and you have this sense of optimism that you can get through it. And that's how every business is built. It doesn't matter who's coming at you. It doesn't matter if it's the largest company in the world. You just take it and you fight through it, and it's no big deal. So I think I wouldn't go back to my 25-year-old self and change anything distinctly about it, except if I had a crystal ball, I would have probably put a little bit of money
Yeah.
into more technology. I think going, you know, I I had to go through the real estate, healthcare, insurance, and financial services businesses to be able to have enough capital to invest in technology. But I think my allocation to technology was probably underallocated or off, and I would I would change that. But on a personal level, I mean, I've lived the most charmed life that a person can live in the United States.
I love that you say that, and I'm very grateful for the one tech bet you did make, Ellie. That worked out pretty well for me.
I should have put more. I should have invested more.
Uh,
Actually, that's something that my 36-year-old self would have hoped he had done, is invest more capital in Crexi, which I'm making up for now
Nice.
on this next round, and hopefully you've got something in the works that you're going to be announcing sometime soon.
A little bit. We'll save that for the next podcast. But yeah, we're working on a few things that'll maybe change the trajectory just a little bit.
Okay.
You said something important there, I think, that is underrated in people I speak with, but just having that gratitude. I think people are like to complain when things get tough. I think some people have the attitude of, I am so appreciative of the moments that you have and the life you have and all the good things and the blessings you have. Why do you think gratitude is such an important trait that maybe separates people that have almost the ability to do great
Yeah.
things, but always fall just a little bit short? And what's like been your experience with like how important having gratitude about life is?
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, I think there may be. This is just a theory, but there may be something that happens in people's lives, whether it could be that you lost a loved one, that was too young, or that you miss, and then you say, I don't want life to get past to go forward without me enjoying as much as I can out of it, right? So there may be things in people's lives that impact their ability to be more grateful for the days that they have. That may come from very personal sets of circumstances. I know for me it was, I think having lived through things that, my early childhood was difficult, and so I always saw a great deal of conflict where I grew up. And that kind of shaped my not only my view about gratitude, but my view about human beings. Right? I mean, I went from a place that was very difficult and conflict ridden, where there was violence, and I went to Harvard as an undergrad, and I was studying with Nobel Prize winners and people that were extraordinary statesmen. I worked at the Institute of Politics um, for a few years and met extraordinary statesmen, and I got to see like these two bookends of humanity, where I said, there's a lot here in between. And I'm just going to enjoy as much as I can of all these people that I've seen. But it also gave me these bookends to be able to size up and judge competition, judge investments, judge people around me. When you grew up in a place like that, the way I did, and then you went and had this life, you kind of bookend between those two things, and everything in between, you can, I think, assess a little bit better and also enjoy a lot more.
Totally. Yeah, I like how you always remember where you came from. You don't shy away from that. You own that, and I think that's a beautiful part of who you are today. Does that your upbringing impacted how you view real estate and your real estate career? Also, I know it impacts how you view life and people and experiences, but is there any tie to real estate?
Yeah, I think so. I think, look, demographics are the most foundational part of real estate. And so I think understanding the bookends of humanity and of demographics, you're able to understand, like, you know, how families are built, how households operate, how resources are scarce, how people live, everywhere from affluence to poverty. If you don't have that understanding, then you have no frame through which to make investments in the real estate business. And so my early frame in understanding everything from poverty to affluence today and wealth, I think those two bookends are the core, like the foundation of how I identify investments in housing, in logistics. When we approved an industrial development on Friday, investment committee in the office, right? And we understand, if that building is for furniture, it's going to distribute furniture. That warehouse is going to distribute furniture. It's going to distribute it to certain demographics in that part of Phoenix. And so you have to understand where it's going, how households are formed. Why do you need furniture? Well, because you have growing families. Some of them are moving from other markets. They're coming to the Phoenix metro, and all of that demand is created through the furniture business into a warehouse that we are developing on a built-to-suit basis, right? And so all of those things are entirely connected. If you don't have that foundation of understanding human nature and consumption trends, how do you make investment decisions? You
I like that you brought up investment committee. What's Fernando like in investment committee, and what do you think makes a good investment committee?
know. Okay. Well, I'll give you a live, like, something that actually kind of played out that maybe will surprise you a little bit. In an investment committee, we were doing an investment committee to make an investment in a GP, a hedge fund,
Hmm.
and it was a hedge fund, and we were going to take a stake in the GP, and then also make a large LP commitment to get the hedge fund off the ground. And the person that presented um, was somebody that I knew from a long time and had a great sort of pedigree, right? All the name brands, great college, great investment bank that they had worked at, all of that stuff. And they had worked at a hedge fund, and now they were starting it, and we would give them the working capital and the co-invest to get it off the ground. This was a couple years ago, and basically the proposal he made, that person made, that founder, was sort of off the mark, right? It was too too pricey, and the return expectations were like low teens for a hedge fund. So we had to take all this risk in standing up a business, and then our capital would compound at, I don't know, 10, 11%. So I thought that was deficient, and the folks that were in the investment committee that were sitting around this conference room, I said, the person left after the pitch. And then I asked the people in our investment committee, I said, you know, I think the returns are too low, and this person has a great pedigree and all that, but I think something's missing. Does anybody have a better idea than investing in this hedge fund? And one guy raises his hand and says, I've got one. Um, you've never been in one, and you're not gonna understand. You don't know a lot about this industry. None of us do, but it's the med spa industry. And it's got great tailwinds. The demographics are there, and we found a business that we can acquire that's relatively small, and we can build a lot of M&A and new stores and new locations around it. And and I said, okay, those demographics look great. The numbers look good. The trends look very promising. Let's dive into the details on that business. And we did. We ended up buying that business. It was, 5 or 6 locations, but it was run. The reason we pulled the trigger on it was it was run by a woman named Nicole Caramonte, who still runs that business today. And she's an extraordinary operator, and she knows that industry really well. Every one of those 5 locations she had built, she had acquired them through a turnaround and fixed them and stabilized them and got them up working. And then we built a business around her and around that core platform. And today it's the largest med spa business in the country.
It's a great story. I know that story, and I think that's a good insight into where an IC can go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So we went
one
from a
hedge
Wall
fund.
Street hedge
Yeah,
fund and a GP
yeah.
stake all the way to a med spa in, I think it was in Oregon and Utah.
I think your mind works quickly when assessing trends, where we are in cycles. You have some good history there. Obviously, some of it's luck, but I think a lot of it is foresight and skill and thoughtfulness and instincts.
By the way, she's also Italian descent like you,
Yeah,
so maybe there's some Italian, stuff going
maybe,
on there.
maybe there could be. Maybe there could be. So what do you think? Well, I guess 2 questions. One is, what do you think about when you think about trends and cycles and where we are in a cycle and how to assess where we are in a cycle? And then two, if you were to put your point to where we are right now in the world, where would you say we are today?
So I one of the patterns I've seen lately, um, that I think leads to giant movements and change is one is obviously the technology question. But the AI thing, I think we all sort of understand the massive impact of that. I think what's more difficult to see is that in every business that we're in, and every business that sells something to you, there is a lot of technology already based into that business. So, in our, take our med spa business, right? Or any one of our businesses, insurance. Every one of our businesses has massive technology needs. And our vendors that sell us things also have massive technology needs. So if it's a med spa, it needs Allergan pharmaceuticals, or it needs injections, or it needs injectables, or any kind of thing that is made or service that is delivered, all has this giant foundation of technology needs. Point of sale system, software, AI to call customers, appointment setting. There's hundreds or maybe thousands of technological elements of every base business. And so what I've seen is that if a business sold $100 of products and services, and it had a 30% profit margin or 25% profit margin, now that's $75 of profit. I mean, I'm sorry, of expenses. That now has more expenses. Like it has $82 of expenses. And a lot of that operating expense factor inside every P&L has a significant technological component to it. And so we're seeing a lot of impact from technology in every single business, whether it's healthcare or insurance or real estate. The piping system of everything is now technology based, and margins for other businesses will come down. So you have to be, if you're buying, if you're dealing with Amazon and you're dealing with Oracle software, any one of these providers, you should go buy their stock because they are becoming more valuable based on selling more services to every business in America. So I've noticed that, and that's why we've reallocated more capital towards the technology space. The second trend that I think um, is massive is the financialization of the economy. And so you see massive movements of capital into alternatives, into private credit, into the RIAs, the registered investment advisors. And as that happens, that capital that flows out of the public markets into the private markets and alternatives and private credit, those markets become a lot more efficient. And as they become more efficient, those returns will compress. And we're seeing we're seeing that trend, and we're seeing the technology royalty trend, so to speak. And I see as those things play out, there's very little to stop it, and so you have to change and adapt accordingly.
I think we should all listen to that. The De Leon Family Foundation. Do you want to tell listeners about the foundation and the purpose and where you see that going?
Well, what we've done thus far is two things. One is we have started, as of the last few years, 5 or 6 years, awarding scholarships to students in Texas, for either for college or for high school, depending on the circumstances, and to support students that are just creative people that want to go stake their claim in the world, and that come from various backgrounds. And so it's intending to do that, right? The scholars are a young group of men and women, and we support them with scholarships, but also bringing in our network of friends in every industry to support them as they develop with that network. Some of the network is friends and people that are CEOs in different categories, whether it's um, media or technology or real estate or healthcare. And so we support these students, and that's been very rewarding. And the second thing is, um, going back to my hometown, and where there's distinct poverty, and supporting food programs, and supporting orphanages, and places that require capital in order to improve everything from access to food and shelter to water and services. And so, going back to my origins, and giving back to those communities has been pretty important. And so, it's early. I think, you know, I'm 46 years old, and I'd like to do this on philanthropically for the next 40 years, at least. And so I think these are early innings of how we develop a philanthropic strategy. Some of it should have an entrepreneurial element. So we're early in conceiving that. And, and so hopefully, people come to us. Recently we were approached by this housing developer who is building housing, um, very, very affordable housing in Latin America, an American developer from San Francisco. And the idea that he developed uh, was was less about the sticks and bricks, but mostly around a design that was really like an engineering design to getting people into home ownership. And without getting into the details, which are fascinating, this company called New Story Homes. Check it out. What they've done is bring thousands of homes to people in Latin America that were in poverty to get them into home ownership. And it doesn't require a lot of capital if you design it the way that they have. And I think it's brilliant the way they've done it. So things like that I think are sort of philanthropic, but entrepreneurial, and the hybrid version of those things. I think I'd like to be able to pull that off over the next 30 or 40 years as we engage more philanthropically.
I love that. It's so personal to you. I love that you give back to that. Are there other projects on the horizon that you think are part of your future philanthropic giving?
That I mean, that's it for now, but we are on the hunt for new ideas. So anybody who has a really clever philanthropic impact and entrepreneurship idea, if you can blend those, I am very, very focused and particularly intrigued by those kinds of models that have the merger of philanthropy and impact with entrepreneurship, right? So people that are clever about like the underlying root of problems and want to go solve the root of a problem through entrepreneurship. So we can find people like that where we'd love to back them.
It's great. In terms of just Leon Capital, and just let's focus on the real estate for now. Is there some legacy that you want left behind one day about what the Leon Capital real estate portfolio looks like and what it means?
Well, I don't know. I don't think about legacy very much, but I do think that there are uh, there are projects that are, are the people in our team that develop housing and distribution space, industrial or healthcare real estate. They provide. I mean, we're doing extraordinarily good work, right? I mean, we built tens of thousands of apartments every over the last decade, and we do that, and that's really difficult to do. We're a very, pretty substantial private developer that uses our balance sheet to invest substantial sums of money, and to do that in Phoenix and Denver and Dallas and Austin and Florida and the Carolinas, to do that with our balance sheet is pretty difficult to do. It's not like you build a you build a plant and then you go build the same car in that manufacturing facility. Like, we have to invent the housing in every new jurisdiction we go to. So the work we do is really difficult, but it's really good work to develop housing. And then, the all of it is part of this like economic development of every location we go to where we build, a hospital system or a warehouse. That creates jobs. It creates economic activity. The people that go to work there every day, they go earn a living, and then those people support their family. So I think it's pretty extraordinary work that all of our teams do in real estate, and that's all I ever wanted to do anyway. So I don't if that's our legacy, then that's great.
Do you think community impact is like a necessary thing when thinking about developing real estate in the U.S., or is it nice to have and also a thought, or is it an absolute necessary thing to think about?
I mean, I think everybody's got to make their own decisions about how to approach it, right? I mean, I don't, I'm not trying to, proselytize a message of like, things have. Generally, capitalism is a good thing, and you can be selfish or greedy about whatever you're doing, and it could have great results on other people's lives. So that's just the way. That's a very good consequence of capitalism, is that when you pursue excellence and you invest something in a capital in a business, and that business grows, then it creates jobs and economic development. So capitalism has this great advantage that it can be good for you on your bottom line, and also create jobs and opportunity for people. So that's why it works. That's why capitalism works. It's because it has those two sides to it that are never in conflict. You can invest capital, grow businesses, and have people do very well around you because of that.
So I think that's well said, obviously. But I think one thing you always talk about is how you always viewed America as a child, and how lucky you were to have been born here versus some of your siblings, and how it really felt like, the land of opportunity. And I feel like today there's a narrative out there that maybe America isn't that same place it was 35, 40 years ago. And I think your view on this is really interesting because you study the world really, really deeply. How do you feel about that? What do you think? Where does America stand today in terms of the land of opportunity versus where it was before, and what's your outlook on the future?
So first of all, I think companies and countries are very similar in that regard. They always have a DNA. And the founding DNA of this country was that it was people that were leaving a country, England in that particular in that specific in that specific circumstance. They left England, they came to the United States, uh, fleeing religious persecution. Every wave of immigrants that has come to this country, of all kinds, right? Every single person that has been here came from an immigrant background by definition,
Mhm.
and that is sui generis. That is a tautology. It's a fact. You can't you can't argue with that. So that is what the DNA of America was initially, and that's what it continues to be. The way I know that is that if you go to any other country, right? If I travel to Europe, to Latin America, to Asia, and you say, I came from nothing and I built something, I bootstrapped it and I got there and I did it. If you do that in anywhere else in the world, nobody really responds to it the way we do in the United States. In the United States, if you say I came from nothing and I got there and I made something out of nothing, this country is built to reward you. And everybody says, wow, that's a rags to riches story. And that's the way this country is. So I think that is the central tenet of the American dream. And if you say that in Europe, people look at you like you're wearing a scarlet letter, like there's something wrong with you that you came from nothing. Why do you say that? Like in the United States, it's a badge of honor, but in Europe and Latin America and many other countries, in India and many other countries around the world, it's not like that. And so I think the United States is special in how it responds to people achieving social mobility and achieving the American dream. So nobody responds to it that way, and I don't think that changes any time in the future. I think that's the soul of this country.
Agreed. How do you want to be remembered? So you've done. Obviously, you were just featured in Forbes, and I think everybody has an idea of like what they want to achieve in life, and I think your idea of achievement in life far exceeds most normal minds out there. But I mean, how do you want to be remembered when it's all said and done?
Man, I read a book once. I forget the name of it, but I read a book about the things that people say right before they pass away, right before they die. And all of the things people say generally like summarize to the following two things. I wish I would have been with my family more and spent more time with my family more. And I wish I would have done the things that I love more. So when people are in their deathbed, most of the time they say, I wish I had been around these people that I love more. I wish I would have done things that I love more. That's what we all want. And this thing about remembering, I want to be in a place where I'm surrounded by my family and my family actually loves me. If I got that, then I'm good. I don't think there's anything that should be like the pinnacle of what a person does in their life. If you are there in your deathbed and nobody is there with you, that probably means you lived a pretty not a great life. And so anyway, I hope that when I'm there, my deathbed, there's a lot of kids and grandkids there, and they generally think I'm a good dude.
Well, you have a pretty special family, and I've seen it and met a lot of them. They're great. Um, so what would be your piece of advice to the next generation? Speaking of your kids and your grandkids, if you were to leave with one word of wisdom, one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say focus on compound interest. that's that's what I would say. Focus on compound interest early. The earlier you start compounding capital, the better. So if you're 6, 7, or 26 or 27 or 36 or 37, focus on compound interest. That is the best way. The best way to live. I do think that that is my. I think where I grew up. I I don't have any nostalgia around poverty. I do believe that capitalism is a moral force, and I do believe that investing capital, growing it, is a very healthy thing for individuals and for society in general. So what I give people advice, I say, if you're young, buy a house. If you move, rent it and keep building equity, and then compound capital and interest as soon as you're able to. So live below your means and save and put that capital into assets that are going to grow over time. So that is generally. And then, of course, you got to be be a good person, whatever that means to you. But generally, my advice is always compound capital as soon as you can.
What happened at 16 where you decided this was the mindset you were gonna have the rest of your life?
Well, I made a little bit of money and I learned about it. I learned about I was a early Buffett reader and he was a big he proselytized compound interest plenty, and so I got into it early and then it played out well in my life for 30 years. I started our business with very little capital, as you know, and so compound interest does work, and then if you can do that, then you get to see a lot of things in the world because you have a broader panorama and a broader lens. And so I was young and frankly I wanted to grow the capital base because I wanted to help my family, right? I just wanted to be supportive of everything in my family because I had this great opportunity to live and work in the United States. So I had to give back, go back and um, support my family and my community, and the way to do that was with economic means, and the best way to do that is through compound interest. So go get it early, get it as soon as you can. Buy a duplex, live in the other half, and pay off your mortgage. That's my that's my piece of
It's good
advice.
advice. Other than Warren Buffett, who are some of the best at compounding capital that maybe aren't as famous or as front and center as a Warren Buffett?
Oh, well, there are. I mean, Jim Simmons at Renaissance, I think, is probably up there. He has since passed, but I think the guys at Rentec, the folks at Rentec, have done very well. I think they compounded capital at a pretty extraordinary clip, and I think fundamentally you have to have high conviction and invest right directly. I think part of the ability to compound capital has to be that you actually own the assets that you invest in. So the layers and the supply chain of capital that has become very, very complex today in the United States, that's just made it more difficult to compound capital over long periods of time. But yeah, I would say the Rentec folks have done it, and then obviously there are holding companies that have done very well. Whether it's private companies, sometimes they take sometimes they could be public or private and they operate as holding companies, right? The ability for Amazon or some of the big tech companies to survive and adapt was that they put capital into other businesses like retail at Amazon became AWS and vice versa. IKEA started as a merchant distribution company that was selling pens and then went into furniture. So every business's ability to adapt is how they're able to compound capital over long periods of time. And I think a lot of private holding companies have done that, and they're well below the radar. And some of them are public, some of them are private, but most of the time, what they all share in common is that they've been able to go into multiple industries and assemble assets to to change their paradigm, right? Whether it's, if you were in search, could you go into AI early enough to protect the search business and things like that? So I think adaptation is really what compound interest um, is, the adaptation of capital over long periods of time. It's really the reason I care about it so much is because it's really sort of an evolutionary thing. It's an evolutionary adaptation of in ideas and investments over long periods of time into various industries and various ideas. And that's the way, the human species adapts and survives over long periods of time by adapting.
Well said. Adapting. So let's bring that back to Crexi, maybe for a second. Um, how do you think the future of commercial real estate investing, commercial real estate brokerage, getting leases, transactions done, getting loans done, accessing data, as technology gets greater, becomes bigger and stronger and smarter? What does the future of brokers look like? What does the future of commercial real estate investing look like? What does the role of the broker become?
Well, I think most people would agree with me that data is going to become a very, very important commodity for all of us in real estate. In the commercial real estate industry, the ability to get data, to synthesize it, and to improve your decision making is going to be the foundation with which most decisions are made. Um, I think you do have this question of like gut and instinct, and all of that is going to matter, but data is going to democratize and level the playing field for commercial real estate. And so I think access to it is going to be the defining factor. If I had to guess, kind of the next 10 years of commercial real estate, I would say that the single biggest variable will be data.
Agreed. And I think the brokers will play a very big role in how that data gets disseminated and how deals get done.
And I think they also, I mean, I think the brokers ought to want to have, multiple parties that they can engage with on both data or listing or accessibility to property. I think more choices for the brokerage community is better, right? In everything, in any part of capitalism, you want multiple groups providing competition and providing service and providing improved products, because I think competition breeds improvement between everybody. So I think the commercial real estate brokerage community will want to engage with multiple platforms, including Crexi, to access data and have more choices for pricing purposes, for the actual the overlay of AI into that data and how it's synthesized will matter in how they make decisions. And so I think the brokerage community will benefit tremendously by having multiple parties with whom they engage on data.
Well, Fernando, it's been an absolute pleasure. I want to personally thank you for what's been an amazing 10.5 year journey of Crexi.
I thought it was like 7, but it's been 10, huh?
Since we first started thinking about the idea, it's been 9 since launch, and I think the best days are ahead of us. I think a good foundation has been built, a lot of which has been inspired and pushed by you and your influence, and hopefully everybody learned as much from our conversation today as I've learned from you over the last 14 years as being a friend more than anything else, and I've really appreciated our friendship, and thank you for coming and
Ye-
see you in the office and hanging with us. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks, man. It has been a lot of fun, and also walking around the office is pretty fulfilling. It's very meaningful to see so many people doing great work, and I do think this is early days of Crexi. I think you're just getting started. The idea is at a tipping point for Crexi, where it is achieving great results, and the amount of information and the people here, the products that are being developed, I think you should be very proud of what you've built, because all of the people that work here are doing great work. And I think you're seeing the rewards from a commercial real estate community that values what you've given them as a tool to make better decisions. So, I mean, capitalism is sort of fair that way. It rewards the people that provide good value to society. And I think Crexi is providing great value. So you and your team should be really, really proud of the work you've done.
Well, thank you. The best is ahead.
Yeah.